Hello everyone, we're back with the next installment in the A to Z Mystery Series. Today we'll be reading The X'd Out X-Ray. This one is a really good one. This one's one of my top faves as well. Here is the first picture. They're always eating. Chapter 1. I'm not dressing like a penguin and you can't make me, Josh said. Why not? Asked his friend Dink. I'm doing it and so is Ruth Rose. Dink's whole name was Donald David Duncan. When he first learned to say his name, it came out as Dink, and that became his nickname. Josh grinned. So if you jumped off a bridge, would I have to do it too? Josh, everyone who goes to a Penelope Gwynn concert dresses like a penguin, Ruth Rose said. That's because Penguin is her stage name. Ruth Rose always dressed in one color. Today's color was lime green, from her headband down to her sneakers. Come on, Josh, she went on. It'll be fun. Eating is fun, Josh said, popping the last of a sandwich into his mouth. Penguins like to eat too, Dink reminded Josh. Yeah, raw fish, Josh muttered. It was Friday, and the kids were in Ruth Rose's backyard having lunch. Ruth Rose had just found out that she'd won 4 free tickets to Penelope Gwynn's concert in Hartford. Be a sport, Josh, Dink said. All you have to do is wear a white shirt and black pants or shorts. They're passing out penguin masks to everyone who goes. Ruth Rose gave Josh a sly look. If you dress up, I'll buy you a hot dog. Josh wiggled his eyebrows. Make it 2 hot dogs and it's a deal, he said. Deal, Ruth Rose said. Be here tomorrow morning at 11:30. My dad is driving us. She started cleaning up the paper plates. Josh grabbed the last cookie. Hey, if you throw in a milkshake, I'll even quack like a penguin. Dink pitched a wadded up napkin at Josh. Penguins don't quack, he said. Only ugly ducklings like you do that. The next morning, Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose climbed into her father's station wagon. Ruth Rose was wearing a white t-shirt, a black vest, and white shorts. Quick, call a doctor, Josh teased. Ruth Rose is wearing 2 colors. Josh's shirt was black with white stripes going up and down. Below the shirt, he was wearing black jeans cutoffs. White gym socks peeked over the tops of his black high-top sneakers. You're supposed to look like a penguin, Dink said, not a zebra. I like stripes, Josh said. Dink was wearing a black t-shirt and white jeans. I remember the other book that Ruth Rose wore 2 different colors was when she thought her cat was missing. Turns out it wasn't missing, it was having babies. Remember that? Mr. Hathaway was wearing a white shirt, a black bow tie, and black trousers. I don't believe I've ever heard of Penelope Gwynn, he said as he backed out of his driveway. What kind of music does she play? Rock and roll, Ruth Rose said, but she plays the violin while she sings. Oh, great, muttered Josh, next to Dink in the back seat. I get dressed up like a bird to listen to violin music. You could always stick your 2 hot dogs in your ears, Dink suggested. 20 minutes later, they were in Hartford. Mr. Hathaway parked his car in a lot across the street from Bushnell Park where the concert was being held. Look, said Ruth Rose, pointing to a white trailer near the park entrance. Painted on the side of the trailer was a life-size portrait of Penelope Gwynn. On the rear of the trailer was a picture of a real penguin. Does she live in that thing? Josh asked. Not a big star like her, Ruth Rose said. I think she just travels in it to her concerts. I'll bet she has the penthouse in that hotel. Across the street from the park stood the Parkview Hotel. It was 12 stories high, and its windows reflected the blue sky. Well, let's go find our seats, Ruth Rose's father suggested. At the gate, Ruth Rose handed her tickets to a man wearing a penguin suit. He told them where to sit and gave them each a cardboard penguin mask. That is a crazy penguin suit. Just fold on the dotted lines to make the beat stick out, the man said. Then poke the eye holes so you can see. The man and Mr. Hathaway stepped over a lot of feet and legs to get to their seats. Almost everyone was dressed in black and white and wearing penguin masks. A tall woman sat in front of Dink. He noticed that she was reading a thick autograph book. Her penguin mask was resting on top of her bright yellow hair. I don't feel very good about myself, Josh said as he placed the mask over his face. His red hair spiked over the top of his mask. I think you look very penguin-like, Josh, Mr. Hathaway said as he put on his own mask. These are excellent seats, Dink said. The kids were only 20 feet from the stage. Penelope's band members were all dressed like penguins. They sat at the back of the stage tuning their instruments. To the right of the stage was a green tent with a red cross painted over the entrance. Next to the cross were the words First Aid Tent. Several food carts were parked along the path, a few yards away. A police officer on a horse moved slowly through the crowd. She stopped and chatted with people and let the kids pet the horse. Josh leaned in toward Ruth Rose. When do I get my hot dog? He asked. At intermission, she answered. At exactly 1 o'clock, the door of the penguin trailer opened up and Penelope Gwynn stepped out. A tall, broad-shouldered man was with her. Everyone in the audience stood up and started clapping as the star walked across the stage. Penelope Gwynn was wearing a black and white outfit that sparkled. Her black hair was piled high in her head. Hanging from a chain around her neck was a diamond penguin. The jewel glittered in the sun. And that is the chapter picture. It's her necklace. The corner picture is cool in this book, too. It's like the one in Vampire's Vacation, because there are two of them. It waddles. Chapter 2. Penelope Gwynn climbed the stage steps, and the crowd settled down. The tall man stood at the bottom of the steps with his muscular arms crossed. On the stage, someone handed Penelope her violin. Then the group began to play. After a few minutes, the band stopped and Penelope Gwynn played her violin. Then she began to sing. The audience joined in. Dick noticed that Josh was snapping his fingers. "Thought you didn't like violin music," he whispered to Josh. "I don't usually," Josh said, "but I've never heard anyone play a violin like this before." Penelope played and sang for about 45 minutes before she took a break. She handed her violin to a band member and took a deep bow. "Thank you," she called to the cheering crowds. "I'll be back in 20 minutes." Sounds like fun. The woman in front of Dink pulled her own mask down over her face. Then she hurried toward the stage steps with her autograph book. Josh pulled off his mask and stood up. He grinned down at Ruth Rose. "These hot dogs smell so good." Mr. Hathaway handed Ruth Rose some bills. "Lunch is on me," he said. "Meet me back here after intermission." So now they can wander alone at a concert by themselves. Jeez. The kids walked toward the food carts. They passed Presto Pizza and stopped at a cart with a picture of a hot dog on the side. A sign said, "Frank's Finest Franks." A man behind the cart was wearing a white jacket. The name Frank was stitched in black letters over the pocket. "I'd like 4 hot dogs, please," Ruth Rose said. "Sorry, I'm closing for a few minutes," the man said. He needed a shave. Dark curly hair grew on the back of his thick knuckles. "But I'm starving," Josh pleaded. He gestured at Dink and Ruth Rose. "My friends are too." "Well, all right," the man said, "but make it snappy." He held up an autograph book. "I have to get Penguin to sign this for my daughter." The man pulled 2 rubber gloves from a box on the counter. He slipped them over his hands and plopped 4 hot dogs into buns, then placed them on paper plates. "Drinks?" he asked. 3 colas, Ruth Rose said. She put her money on the counter. The man traded the drinks for the bills and slapped down the change. "Mustard and stuff is on the counter," he yelled as he dashed toward the stage. "You should get her autograph too, Ruth Rose," Dink said as he squeezed mustard on his dog. "I already have it," Ruth Rose said. "When they sent me the tickets, there was a signed picture of Penguin in the envelope." "I hear circus music," Josh said. He pointed toward some trees. "Let's go check it out." They ate as they walked toward the tall trees. "A carousel," Ruth Rose said. "Want to take a ride? Dad gave me enough money." "No way," Josh said around the mouthful of hot dog. "That's for little kids." "Come on, Josh," Dink said. "It'll be fun. I haven't been on a carousel for years. Besides, I see some kids our age riding it." Josh sighed. "Okay, but I'm not sitting on some dumb lamb or puppy dog." The kids finished eating, dropped their trash in a barrel, and hurried to buy tickets. A minute later, the carousel stopped and a bunch of kids hopped off. Ruth Rose climbed aboard a shiny black horse and sat in its golden saddle. She held on the safety pole that went from the floor to the carousel's roof. Dink chose a green dragon with fake red flames shooting from its mouth. Josh checked out each animal. Finally, he chose a roaring lion. Those are cool carousel animals. I've only been on a carousel with horses, I think. The carousel operator circled the platform. "Be sure to hold on to your poles," she said. A minute later, the carousel started moving. Dink held the pole as his dragon moved up and down. He laughed out loud when it suddenly roared and its tail swept back and forth. He looked for Josh and Ruth Rose. They both waved at Dink. "My lion is faster than your dragon," Josh shouted at Dink. Just then, Dink heard yelling from over by the stage. He tried to see what was going on, but a crowd of people blocked his view. The yelling continued, and Dink still couldn't see. Holding on to his safety pole, he kneeled on the dragon's back for a better view. But the dragon was slippery, and Dink suddenly felt himself falling. He slid off, landing on the wooden platform. "Ow!" Dink yelled. Oh, no. For all the times these kids are wandering around alone solving crimes, I'm surprised this is the first time any of them's actually been hurt. The attendant hurried over. "Are you okay?" she asked, helping Dink to his feet. "Yeah, but I scraped my arm," he said. "It really hurts." "Stay right here," the attendant said. She walked to her lever and stopped the carousel. Josh and Ruth Rose jumped off their mounts and ran over. "What happened?" Ruth Rose asked. "I heard someone yelling over by the stage," Dink said. "I kneeled on my dragon to see better, but I slipped off." Dink put a finger on a small swelling of Dink's forehead. "You got a boo-boo," he said, grinning. "I'm getting my dad," Ruth Rose said, and she took off running. Just then, the attendant came back with a pencil and a pad of paper in her hand. She felt Dink's forehead. "You bumped your head, too," she said. "I'll need your name and address. I'll have to report all accidents." While Dink told her, Ruth Rose came back with her father. "You all right, Dink?" Mr. Hathaway asked. Dink blushed. "My arm hurts," he said. Mr. Hathaway checked Dink's arm, then looked at the bump on his head. I think you'll be fine, he said, but I feel you better if you paid a visit to the first aid tent. Good idea, the attendant said. She pointed to the sign. Do not stand or lean off rides. Did you see that sign? Dink nodded. I was trying to see what was going on by the stage, he said. Penelope Gwynn got robbed, Ruth Rose said. What? Dink and Josh cried at the exact same time. It's true, Ruth Rose's father said. As the foursome walked toward the first aid tent, Josh nudged Dink. Look at all the cops, he said. The stage where Penelope had been singing was surrounded by police officers. The mounted officer was talking to people in the audience. 2 other officers were on the stage standing with Penelope Gwynn. The tall man who had been her escort was nowhere to be seen. What did they take? Dink asked. Her diamond penguin, Ruth Rose said. Someone in a mask snatched it right off her neck. Oh no, we got 2 bad things already happening. That this necklace has been stolen, and Dink hurt his arm. Chapter 3. Inside the tent, a man was holding a glass of water to a red-faced woman. A boy was standing next to the woman's chair. Do you feel better, Mom? The boy asked. Much better, Ronnie, his mother said. Thank you, Dr. Fleming, the man said, looking down at the tag pinned over the pocket of his white jacket. She stood up. Come on, Ronnie, let's get some lemonade, she said to her son. Thanks again, Dr. Fleming. No problem, the doctor said. He glanced at Mr. Hathaway and the 3 kids. Who's the patient, he asked. Me, Dink said. The doctor pointed to 2 folding chairs. Have a seat, please. There were no other chairs in the tent. We'll wait outside, Mr. Hathaway said. He guided Josh and Ruth Rose to the tent opening. Be a brave little man, Dink, Josh teased. Dink stuck his tongue out at Josh, then sat down. Your name is Dink? The doctor asked. He pulled 2 thin rubber gloves from a box and slipped them onto his hands. Dink nodded. It's a nickname, he said. My real name is Donald David Duncan. The doctor sat in the chair opposite Dink. He touched the small bump on Dink's forehead. How'd this happen, he asked. Dink told the doctor how he fell off the carousel and showed him the red scrape on his arm. Does it hurt? The doctor asked. Dink nodded. A little, especially when I twist it. Don't twist it, the doctor said. Just then, a police officer stuck his head inside the tent. Excuse me, Doc, the officer said. Did you see anyone run by your tent a few minutes ago? Nope, I was pretty busy, Dr. Fleming said. What's the problem? Someone grabbed Penelope Gwynn's diamond pendant, the officer said. The perp took off in the crowd. Oh no, I hope you catch him, the doctor said. Don't worry, we will, the cop said. Miss Gwynn might be able to identify the thief, so we're stopping everyone at the main exit gate. After the police officer left, the doctor turned back to Dink. Here's what we're going to do, he said. I'll bandage your arm, then we'll go to my office and I'll x-ray it. The doctor pulled a sealed bandage from a white cabinet. While I'm wrapping your arm, I want you to read that sign over there, slowly. Dink looked at the sign. Why? My eyes are okay, he said. The doctor opened the package. I want to make sure you don't have a concussion. Start reading, he said as he began wrapping Dink's arm with the long bandage. Dink started reading. How to avoid sunstroke. 1. Always use sunblock. 2. Wear a hat. 3. Don't stay out in the sun too long. 4. Avoid strenuous exercise on hot days. 5. Drink plenty of water. You're a good reader, Dink, the doctor said, finishing with the wrapping. Wiggle your fingers for me. Dink wiggled his fingers and looked at his arm. The bandage went from his wrist to his elbow. A small metal clip held the end of the bandage in place. Not too tight, is it? The doctor asked. No, but the bandage feels weird. They always do, the doctor said. Now, we'll call in your father. He's my friend's father, Dink explained. The doctor stepped over to the tent door and invited the others inside. How's your boo-boo? Josh asked. Dink crossed his eyes. I'd like to x-ray Dink's arm in my office, the doctor told Mr. Hathaway. Can you follow me to the hospital? Of course, Mr. Hathaway said. You want to leave right now? The sooner the better, the doctor told him, glancing at his watch. My replacement will be here in a few minutes. The group left the tent and walked toward the main exit. Dink noticed an empty space between Presto Pizza and the lemonade stand. Frank and his hot dog cart had vanished. At the exit, a line of people stood around mumbling. 2 police officers were blocking the closed gate. The woman with yellow hair who had been sitting in front of Dink was talking to one of the officers. Her face was pale and she looked angry. I demand to be let out of this park, the woman said through clenched teeth. Please, you'll have to stay here just a little while longer, the other officer explained. We need to wait for Miss Gwynn. Come on, follow me, the doctor said. He put his hand on Dink's shoulder and guided him toward the front of the line. Hiya, Doc, the officer said. Dink recognized him as the one who had poked his head in the first aid tent. Hello, officer. Look, I have to get this patient to my office pronto, Dr. Fleming said, his hand still resting on Dink's shoulder. He has her arm and a possible concussion. No problem, Doc, the officer said. He nodded at his partner who pushed the gate open. Dink, Josh, Ruth Rose, her father, and Dr. Fleming walked through. Here's the whole crew and that woman back there looking very angry. There's his bandaged arm. Chapter 4. I'm parked in that lot, Mr. Hathaway said as they crossed the street. A blue station wagon. Me too, Dr. Fleming said. Mine's a red Jeep. The hospital's about a mile down Main Street. The kids and Mr. Hathaway followed the red Jeep away from the park and south on Main Street. How's that arm? Mr. Hathaway asked. It's okay, thanks, Dink said. Josh let out a big sigh. Some people will do anything for attention, he said. A few minutes later, Dr. Fleming pulled into a small parking lot in front of Hartford Hospital. He parked near a sign that said hospital staff only. Mr. Hathaway parked in a visitor space. Whew. And they all climbed out. Dr. Fleming led the group through a side door and down a long corridor. They took an elevator to the 3rd floor, then went down another hallway. Dr. Fleming pushed open a door with X-ray printed in green letters. Everyone walked in, and Dr. Fleming pointed to some chairs. You folks can wait here while I get a couple of X-rays, he said. This should only take 10 minutes or so. Dr. Fleming led Dink through a door into a smaller room. Pointing to a table covered with a white sheet, he told Dink to lie down. Then he put a lead apron over Dink's chest. Dink laid his head on a small pillow and stared up at the ceiling. He could hear Dr. Fleming opening and closing drawers and cupboards. Then Dink saw an X-ray machine slide over the table. Dr. Fleming's face appeared next to the machine. Now I want you to lie very still, he said. He placed Dink's arm across his chest. When I say 1, hold your breath. Let it out when I say 2. I have never gotten an X-ray before. Wonder if any of you have had to have an X-ray. I've never broken anything. Luckily. Dr. Face's Fleming disappeared. From a few feet away, he said, 1. Dink held his breath. He heard something click. Then Dr. Fleming's voice said, 2. You can breathe now. Dr. Fleming stepped next to the table again. I'm going to get a look at this in the other room, he said. Be back in a jiffy. Dink counted ceiling tiles until Dr. Fleming returned. This shot is too blurred, he said, dropping an X-ray on the table. He grabbed a big red marker and drew a red X over the X-ray. Hence the title. I'll have to shoot another one without the bandage. Dr. Fleming began removing the bandage from Dink's arm. See that sign over there? He asked Dink. Read it to me, please. Dink read the sign. It was about drinking milk to make your bones strong. There, Dr. Fleming said as he dropped the unrolled bandage on the table next to Dink's shoulder. He positioned Dink's arm again. Lie still and hold your breath, till I tell you to breathe. Dink did as he was told, and after a minute, Dr. Fleming came back and asked him to sit up. After I develop this one, you're free to go, he said. Okay, this one is much clearer, Dr. Fleming said a few minutes later. The arm looks fine, but I'll put the bandage back on. No baseball for a few days, okay? Dink watched as Dr. Fleming rewrapped his arm. You should have your own doctor take a look at this, he said. Then Dr. Fleming opened the door and asked the others to come in. He showed Mr. Hathaway the X-ray. No fracture at all, he said. Probably just strained it when he fell. I'll have to go see my doctor, Dink told Josh and Ruth Rose. We should take the X-ray with us, Mr. Hathaway said. Of course, Dr. Fleming said. He found a large envelope in a drawer and slipped the X-ray inside. Can I have the other one? Dink asked. The one you said was no good? No, I'll just throw... Sure, why not, Dr. Fleming said. He slid it into the envelope with the other X-ray and handed it to Dink. Don't stand up on any more moving carousels, he said. We'll read one more chapter in this video, chapter 5. That evening, Dink ate dinner in front of the TV with his parents. His mother cut his meat for him and made his favorite cookies for dessert. His bandaged arm was resting on a pillow that he held on his lap. Dink's father winked at him. Some kids will do anything to get out of their chores, he said. Look, there's Penelope Gwynn, Dink's mother said. She turned up the volume on the TV. A reporter was interviewing the singer about the theft of her diamond pendant. Dink could see the white penguin trailer behind them. It was a gift from someone special, Penguin said. I'm shocked and angry that anyone would steal it. I'm sure you must feel terrible, the reporter said, but your fans feel awful too. Will you give another concert tomorrow? No, I'm too upset, Penelope said. I can't think of singing right now, even for my loyal fans. I'll make sure everyone gets a refund. The camera left Penelope's face. Well, that's the story, the reporter said into the camera. Someone wearing a penguin mask stole Penelope Gwynn's priceless necklace while asking for her autograph. There they are eating some dinner and watching the news. The phone rang. Dink's mother answered it, then handed the portable phone to Dink. Hello? He said. Did you see that? Ruth Rose asked. The thief was one of her fans. I know, Dink said. Pretty rotten. Dink stared ahead. He was trying to remember something when Ruth Rose said, Dink, are you there? Yeah, he said. Listen, come over tomorrow after I get back from the doctor's, okay? Just as Dink hung up, the phone rang again. Hello? I think it was that hot dog guy, Josh exclaimed. He had an autograph book, remember? Lots of people there had autograph books, Dink said. Then he remembered something. Josh, after we came out of the first aid tent, the hot dog cart was gone. See, I told you, Josh said. That guy with the hairy fingers is the thief. Maybe, Dink said. Can you come over tomorrow so we can talk about it with Ruth Rose? He asked. What time is lunch? Josh asked. Dink laughed and hung up. Dink's father shut off the TV and picked up a book. Seeing the book made Dink remember the yellow-haired woman who had been sitting in front of them during the concert. She had been holding an autograph book, and she seemed pretty mad at the cop for not letting her leave the park right after the theft. Got a couple suspects so far. This blonde-haired woman, who was very angry, and the hot dog guy, Frank. At 10 o'clock the next morning, Dink and his mom drove to the family medicine clinic on Main Street. The receptionist brought them to Dr. Bright's office. Dr. Bright snapped on a pair of rubber gloves. Dink handed him the envelope containing the x-rays. "What's this?" Dr. Bright asked, holding up the X'd-out x-ray. "The other doctor took that one while I had the bandage on," Dink explained. "He said it was too blurry, so he did another one with my bandage off." Dink pointed to the envelope. Dr. Bright slid the x-ray back into the envelope and pulled out the other one. He attached it to a light board and examined Dink's arm. "I see nothing in this x-ray except healthy bones," Dr. Bright said. "I think you just suffered a minor sprain, Dink." Dr. Bright unwrapped Dink's bandage and examined his arm. He cleaned the scrape and put on a sterile band-aid. "No sports for a few days, kiddo," he said, "and stay off carousels." That keeps being their advice. I think it's good advice, especially if you're going to stand up on a carousel. It's probably not good. Well, we'll have to leave it there for this video. We've got 2 main suspects so far. Wonder what your thoughts are. See you next time to finish the X'd Out X-Ray. Bye.